My wife was pregnant, and we were super excited about that. And one day I came home from work, and she said, I'm a little concerned. I think we should make a doctor visit. And so we did. We went in to see the doctor, and I remember just tears coming down her face. We saw our baby on the monitor, and we didn't hear a heartbeat. And that, still to this day, is one of the most painful memories I have.
This is CIA, Contagious Influencers of America. I'm David Sams. Merry Christmas, everyone. We have something very special for you today. This actually was not on our schedule, but we just felt there are so many people out there, especially at Christmas time, that are going through, well, frankly, grieving a loss. Maybe you've lost a loved one this year, a spouse, a mom, a dad, a brother, a sister, or a good friend. It's just heartbreaking. You can't quite get through it. So we've got something that we ran across, and an artist that we ran across, who wrote a song that has touched millions and millions of lives. Now, this song has not been released by his record company because he has no record company. Actually, he released it himself on YouTube, and it has been shared over 1 million times. Get that, shared over 1 million times, and it has over 50 million views and counting on YouTube. The artist is a gentleman by the name of Craig Avon, and he has an amazing story. It's someone who really overcame a drug addiction. The fact is that that's not the only hurdle that he faced. He and his wife lost 2 kids. She had a miscarriage twice. And so he's going to be here in just a minute to share his story and his testimony right here on CIA, Contagious Influencers of America. Craig and Tess, welcome. It's such a delight to have you here today. I was blown away with seeing your song on Facebook. And I know there's all kinds of stuff on Facebook. You know, you scroll through there and everybody's screaming at you and everybody's trying to sing. And, you know, it's amazing what you can find. But, you know, I don't know what it was. Maybe it was the environment, but the sincerity, the authenticity of your presentation was amazing. Tell me how it all happened.
First of all, thank you. And my wife had a miscarriage, and she thought that she had lost the baby. And so we went in to have a visit at the doctor, and correct me anytime you think I'm wrong, babe. We went in and we saw our baby on the monitor but didn't hear a heartbeat, and that was one of the more painful experiences that I've ever had, that we've ever had, and just tears right there in the doctor's office. And on the way home, I remember just having these words, like lyrics and melody kind of came to me, just a few of them, and I just wanted to express the pain that was going on inside of me. And so I started that, but then thought, I'm not ready to finish the song. And then about 7 months later, my wife and I were pregnant again, and she lost the baby again. And so I revisited the song, and still just not ready to do that. And then maybe close to a year later, a cousin of mine had a miscarriage, and I thought to myself, if I'm not going to finish it for myself, I'm going to finish it for her and for all of those parents, those people out there who have mourned the loss of a child, whether it be in miscarriage or a newborn, just so much pain surrounding the loss of children. And I thought, I got to put some words to this, and felt God was really just giving me words and melody for this song. And so I finished the song, and then even sent a generic version of it to my cousin, and it really ministered to her. And then I thought, okay, I'm going to put it on Facebook. I'm not really a self-promoter, but I thought this is a great way to encourage people. So I set my phone up and propped it up on a book in my office and recorded myself singing and playing the song that I wrote for those who have lost babies. And it ended up getting millions of views from fathers and mothers all around the world who have been impacted by the loss of a child. And God's really brought a lot of healing through that song.
The song is Perfect Way to Start. Craig Avon and his wife Tess here in just a minute, but first, this incredible song.
I guess I'll have to wait to hold you in my arms, but God knows how I've held you in my heart. It hurts to think that it may be a while before we see how beautiful you are. And you may not know, but all our kids have songs. And though you've flown away for now, Daddy's still gonna write you one. But usually lullabies don't make mommies and daddies cry. But we're both sad and overjoyed to know that Jesus holds you tight. Baby, you've made us proud. We smile just thinking about how you left and your first steps will be on holy ground. Be still, my heart, heaven's the perfect way to start. I have to say, I'm fighting jealousy, 'cause the angels get to teach you how to sing. And mommy had your room already with shades of blue and green, but she knows nothing can compare to all you've seen. What a sweet, sweet day it's gonna be when you play with your brothers and sisters together on golden streets. Usually lullabies don't make mommies and daddies cry, but we're both sad and overjoyed to know that Jesus holds you tight. Baby, you've made us proud. We smile just thinking about how you left and your first steps will be on holy ground. Be still, my heart, heaven's the perfect way to start. Usually lullabies don't make mommies and daddies cry, but we're sad and overjoyed to know that Jesus holds you tight. Baby, you made us proud. We smile just thinking about how you left and your first steps will be on holy ground. Be still, my heart. Be still, my heart. Be still, my heart. Heaven's the perfect way to start.
Craig, that's amazing. Every time I hear that, I tears come to my eyes. Tess, how was it for you to actually hear this song? Tell me the emotions that came up.
Although it, it was a reminder of the loss and the pain and the suffering that we went through losing 2 babies, just knowing that there was a life inside of me that I wasn't able to ever hold or see grow up or watch, play football or dance in a ballet. It brought comfort to me to know that that child, even though it has escaped this world and its joys, it also escaped a world of pain and suffering that we live in. And then it went straight into the arms of Jesus. And that's one of the verses in Craig's song that, though you've flown away for now, that child's in the arms of Jesus. And we've actually written a couple songs for our children, just lullabies, silly lullabies to little nursery rhymes. But we rewrite it in the tune of a nursery rhyme, and we didn't get to write a nursery rhyme for them. but we were able to sing, this song is a lullaby, but it's a different kind of a lullaby. And it just, it's brought a lot of comfort to me.
You seem to have a heart to write music that has a felt need, that has a specific purpose, as opposed to just a fun song or a worship song, or these songs seem to have a very specific destination in the heart.
Man,
right?
Absolutely. Yeah, wrote my first song when I was 11 years old, and I can't really even explain it, but there was a girl in my dad's youth group. He was a youth pastor at the time who was in a really serious car accident and nearly lost her life, and it was someone I looked up to, someone I really, really loved, and I just found myself compelled to write a song. But in looking back over the songs that I've written, it took me a little while to realize this, but I feel like it's almost a message that God has for people. It's almost like from God's perspective, and it seems like a message of healing and a hope that God himself would sing over people. And I even think about there's a scripture, and I can't 100% remember what it is, but it talks about how God sings over us. And sometimes I really do believe that there's no one near to our brokenness and our pain than God himself. It says that he's near to the brokenhearted, and I believe he can give songs that can bring healing. And in a sense, we are just his vessels singing that healing over people. But I've always felt compelled to write. People joke, why don't you write a happy song, And I don't know what it is, but I feel compelled to enter into the brokenness of others, maybe because of the brokenness in my own life, to enter into that brokenness and try to speak truth and healing over people. That's what I love to do. I feel called to do that.
The brokenness that you speak of in your own life, I mean, when you say that, you really mean it. You went through a drug addiction for a while.
I did.
I believe, what was it? You told me you were doing like 40 pills a day or something, right?
I was, yeah.
Okay. How does and by the way, I'm also a pastor's kid, so I'm not asking you this out of ignorance. I'm asking you because I've sort of been there, done that. We're supposedly, as PKs, have it all together. Mm-hmm. We live in a perfect little family, right? Mm-hmm. And have the perfect kind of parents and all that. Mm-hmm. How do you go from that to doing 40 pills a day?
I think growing up early on, especially as a singer, not only was my dad a youth pastor and a pastor, we sang on stage from the time I was 3-4 years old. And so I learned how to perform really early, and it was always associated with God and scripture and all of that. And so I had this performance-driven life, and I didn't even realize it. And so inside, those phrases like you live in a glass house, and my dad didn't really throw those phrases around. He was really gracious, and so it wasn't like our home life was you had to be a certain way. But I think just by the nature of growing up in church, and I really wanted to please God from the time I was little, I just learned to perform even though maybe secretly I would do this or that, I just learned to perform. And I think I just grew tired of trying to win God's approval. I think maybe one of the bigger themes in my life is how God is continuing to deliver me from legalism, from a life of performance, and just, learning to trust the love of God for my life has been difficult, but it's also been, God has really brought a lot of healing to me, that while I was at my worst, he was dying for me, and he's forgiven me. And I don't know, I just felt like a failure a lot of my life because I couldn't live up to the standards I heard preached from the stage. And it led me to a place at Teen Challenge. I actually remember going to Teen Challenge, and there was a sign that hangs over the entrance of Teen Challenge. It says, a designated wilderness area, and Deuteronomy chapter 28 is inscribed next to it. And so being the PK kid that I am, I just wanted to study that out and see what it was all about. So my first month there, I went to the top of the hill and sat on one of the benches outside and opened my Bible and began to read about what Deuteronomy 28 was saying. And it says that God brings his children to the wilderness to test them, to see what's in their heart, to find out whether they'll obey him. And right when I read that, I was crushed. Big tears came down my face, and I said out loud to God, you just brought me out here to expose me, to show me that I'm a failure and I don't have what it takes. I said, so I'm going to throw up a miracle prayer. If you can't I don't see how I'm going to go 9 months, which is what the program was. I don't see how I'm going to go one day, let alone 9 months, without coping with this deep sense of feeling unloved or unworthy or ashamed. I don't know how I'm going to not cope with that for 9 months. So, God, I need a miracle. I need you to satisfy me the way you say you can, because I'm not going to make it unless you do that. And so Teen Challenge was a process of God actually doing what he said he could do.
Explain for our listeners what Teen Challenge is.
It is a residential program for men who are 16 or 18 to 35. And I remember when I felt like God was maybe leading me to go there. I was in my 20s, early 20s at the time, and Teen Challenge, I'm like, well, I don't know how I'm going to get accepted into a program that says Teen Challenge when I'm in my 20s, but I found out it's from 18 to 35. And so men go from all over, it's all over the world, these programs. They go with life-controlling issues, some pornography, some drugs, whatever it is. And it's a discipleship program that teaches people how to walk in victory.
So for somebody out there right now who is going through some very dark period of their lives, how can they get involved into or find out more about Teen Challenge?
They're probably in most every state. Mm-hmm. So if you do a search probably on Google or something like that with Teen Challenge in it, it'll probably bring up the nearest one to you. I know that Teen Challenge Cincinnati .org, if you're around where I live, is an incredible program and is helping a lot of people.
So you were doing 40 pills. What kind of pills were they?
Mainly opiates.
Okay.
So I had surgery in high school is how I found out about it. I had surgery on my appendix, and I remember sitting in the living room after I took one of those little round pills, and I was not even 20 yet, and I felt what it was doing to me, and I thought, what in the world is this? And so the next day I took 3. And so after that refill was over or whatever, I kept it at bay. I always had like a taste for that, but I never really had an addiction until years later when there was more access to those kind of pills, and it just grew into a crazy addiction. And
I relate to your story in that, the family I was raised in, well, I'll just say this, for years and years and years, I would cry out to God, hey, all these people that I'm around or go to my church or in my tribe, etc., they all have these incredible testimonies. Here I am, I come from like the perfect family, and I don't have a story. I mean, I'm talking about I felt that way up until about 14 years ago. I'm like, oh gosh, I've been shortchanged. Okay. And then one day my wife came home and told me she wanted a divorce, and we had 2 little kids, and my whole life fell apart. And I went through a very dark period for almost a year, almost didn't want to live. And what kept me alive was that I had 2 little girls. And I figured I'm worth more to them alive than dead. Mm. Even those of us who come from a Christian background, a background where we have pastors in the family, I think there's even that much more pressure on us. Mm-hmm. Because we don't wake up one morning, go through the process, go through the discovery process of Jesus. We're born, it's exactly. In our DNA.
True.
So we don't have the opportunity to discover him. Mm-hmm. It's like implanted in us.
So true.
I think there's a little added pressure that's not talked about a lot with children of pastors.
Yeah. And the director of Teen Challenge in Cincinnati, George Martin, actually says some of the hardest students that come through the program are those who were raised in church or with all of the answers. Mm-hmm. Some of the people that get freer faster are the people that find Jesus and don't have the baggage. They don't have to unlearn so many beliefs that keep us in bondage. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Tess, tell me a little bit about your story. This is your second marriage?
Yes.
Okay. So tell me a little about your story and your journey and what it was like, the 2 of you meeting up, how that came about.
Well, it was about a year and a half after my divorce, and my dad found out that I was dating again. He's an Alaskan fisherman, so he's not around that often, but Craig was a worship leader in his church, and he mentioned Craig Avon to me, and I said, well, I don't know who Craig Avon is. And he said, well, he's a worship leader in my church. And he just kept saying, date Craig Avon, date Craig Avon. And so eventually I looked him up on Facebook because my dad wouldn't leave me alone about it, and Facebook stalked him a little bit and found out a little bit about him, and then decided, okay, well, I might as well see what's in this, because my first marriage I didn't listen to my dad, so I might as well try to listen to him this time. I'm glad I did. So I Facebooked him, and he didn't respond right away, so I thought, well, he's not going to be interested in me. And I didn't know completely his history and his story. I knew he was a worship leader in a church, and I actually have kind of a broken history myself. So in the moment, at that time, I was thinking, well, he probably doesn't want me because, I have all this baggage. And it was a couple days later, he ended up responding to my Facebook message and said, yeah, I'd love to meet up with you. And we met at Starbucks, and that turned into like a long conversation, about 3 hours actually, and left there thinking, wow, like maybe God has something in this.
So the two of you get together, you go through this experience of having these miscarriages. That must have put tremendous emotional pressure on the two of you. I mean, how did you work through that? I mean, these were back-to-back miscarriages, like over months, right? Mm-hmm.
Yes. I remember, the first miscarriage was a little bit more traumatic than the second because I was further along. And we actually saw the baby, on the screen, lifeless and without a heartbeat. Not to say that the second one wasn't, but it was just more traumatic. And I remember us just coming home and holding on to each other and just sobbing together. And a couple years later, for one of our anniversaries, he took us around and took me on this scavenger hunt. And we revisited the hospital where I went in after the miscarriage to be operated on. He made a plaque with 2 sets of shoes because we've lost 2 babies, so they're little 2 newborn shoes, and we have that hanging in our house. But it's been really helpful to go around and to talk about it and to share our stories. It's been healing for me to be able to talk about it. And I think sometimes miscarriage is sort of taboo to talk about because I think it happens frequently, but people really do carry a heavy burden there when they've lost a child that's lived inside of them. That was a life. It was a being that lived in them.
It reminds me of a story. We had a concert. Part of what we do is we travel and go wherever God opens a door, whether it's a little church in Texas or Alabama or a conference that's huge, whatever. And we found ourselves on the way to Arkansas, and I'm personally struggling with what in the world, what kind of dad am I? I don't even know what the financial provision is going to be. And we're going all the way out to Arkansas. It's supposed to be a conference. I don't know anything about it. I don't know if we're going to have the kind of money we need to cover our expenses. But we get there. It's a little church, maybe 10, 11 people at this conference. And I'm just personally having this struggle with doubt. And so I get up there and I do my songs. And one of the songs was Perfect Way to Start. And I share the story of the miscarriages and the pain and sing the song. And then after the concert, this little old lady, she's probably close to 90 years old, came up and she said, she grabbed my hands and she looked at me and she said, I have to tell you that when I was maybe, I think she said 20, somewhere around 20 years old, she said, I was in an automobile accident and I was far along in my pregnancy and I lost the baby. And she said, when you sang that song, I didn't even realize that I needed further healing over that. And that was years and years ago for her. And right away, I just felt like, see, this is exactly what God's called me to do. This is probably a woman who doesn't have the salve to go on and look up a Facebook video or YouTube or something like that. So she probably never would have heard this song had we not driven all the way out to Arkansas and that song, sang that song. And so I was just another story of how God uses it in people's lives.
The video I saw of you, I think you were sitting at the piano.
Yeah.
Right?
I was, yeah.
What goes through your mind when you write a song, you sit at a piano with a microphone, you turn on your iPhone?
I did, yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. So you didn't even have like a real camera.
No, right? No.
How do you feel when you put that up there and you wake up the next morning and there's, thousands and thousands of views, and then you wake up 2 or 3 days later and there's another 50,000,
right.
100,000.
Yeah.
What goes through your mind?
Ecstatic. it's what I feel like I'm put on earth to do, is to write songs and share the love of God and hope with people and encourage them. It's what I love to do. So I'm ecstatic. I'd be lying if I didn't admit that. And I went through a huge period of my life not being a self-promoter, and I'm not a self-promoter. I don't like to throw things out there or talk about the amount of views that I get on a video or anything like that. God challenged me by saying, these aren't gifts you gave yourself. These are gifts I put in you, and I want you to give me something to bless. And so just by putting that phone up there and putting it up on Facebook, I overcame a hurdle of maybe false humility and just said, this is a gift God gave me. I'm going to share it with people. And so when God uses it like that and millions of people see it and letters come in daily, all the time, about people experiencing God's healing in their life, it's such joy is what I get from it.
For those of you who are listening right now, you think, well, that's a wonderful story. That's amazing. That's great. Good for them. I'm glad they've plowed through it, and I'm glad that they had success. But you're not exactly a one-hit wonder, right? You have that song, but then there's another song, right?
Yeah.
Can we play that?
Sure.
Now,
absolutely.
I just want to make sure you own the publishing.
I do.
We don't have to go through the lawyers.
Nope.
And, right?
No, that's mine.
So along with the piano guys, here is Craig Avon performing The Sweetest Gift.
I'm not gonna lie, Christmas really hurts this time, 'cause you're not here to celebrate with me. Tears fill my eyes and memories flood my mind as I place your ornament upon our tree. Although this year I have a broken heart, it gives me hope and joy as I remember where you are. You're with the Son of God, you're with the Prince of Peace, you're with the one we're celebrating, and that thought amazes me. Sometimes I still break down, grieving that we're apart. But the sweetest gift is knowing where you are, 'cause you're with the Son of God. Got your picture in the frame, a stocking with your name. Oh, God knows it's been hard letting go, and I can't bring you back, but I'll see you again. And oh, that thought is healing to my soul. And I'll miss making angels with you in the snow. I guess instead you will be singing with them all around the throne. 'Cause you're with the Son of God, you're with the Prince of Peace, you're with the one we're celebrating, and that thought amazes me. And sometimes I still break down, grieving that we're apart. But the sweetest gift is knowing where you are. You're with the Son of God. And I know how much this season was your favorite time of year. You love to help us decorate the tree. But now that you're with Jesus, can't imagine how you feel. 'Cause he's the one who bled and died upon the tree for you and me. You're with the Son of God. You're with the Prince of Peace. You're with the one we're celebrating, and that thought amazes me. Sometimes I still break down, grieving that we're apart. But the sweetest gift is knowing where you are. Yes, the sweetest gift is knowing where you are. Yes, the sweetest gift is knowing you're in His arms. You're with the Son of God.
Take me back, take me behind the scenes on that particular song. How did it come up? Give me the backstory.
Okay. It's a song called The Sweetest Gift, and I remember there was a season of time where I had done 5 funerals. When I say done, I performed, I sang songs at 5 funerals in just as many months. So in 5 months, I had 5 funerals, and 2 of those funerals were for children, one a 5-year-old and another 2-year-old. And I sat at the piano and watched the grief on the faces of these parents and grandparents and family members and friends, but especially the parents. Being a father of 4, I remember going, how do they do it? I mean, man, I can't explain it. Only God's grace can carry somebody through that, and I don't know what that would feel like to have God's grace sustain me, because it seems impossible. So I said, how are they going to do it? So I wanted to write a song that would help them through that would somehow bring God's grace into the picture. And so for Tommy, was the 5-year-old who died of the pediatric brain tumor, I wanted to write a song as we were heading into Christmas, and I felt like the words that were on my heart were God saying to me, I'm going to give you a song that will help people who want nothing to do with Christmas. I'm going to give them a reason to celebrate. That's what I heard. And so I wrote this song, and again, propped my phone up on a book, recorded myself singing it from my office, and that has been the biggest song so far.
How many times has that song been viewed?
It's almost 60 million.
Almost
times,
60 million times.
Yeah.
60 million times. I mean, you know, years ago, I remember I sat down with my pastor out in California. I had been very successful in the TV world, launched a lot of big shows, and then I had a direct response company, and I did a lot of music compilations, you know, those late night things
Right.
where, you know, you see. I remember telling my pastor, man, you know, I just don't know. Maybe God wanted me to be a pastor. And he goes, are you kidding? He goes, God doesn't want you behind a pulpit. He says, the things that you're doing are reaching so many more people in a very different way. And they're so organic and so just authentic. You are not designed to be behind a pulpit.
Right.
It seems to me like you're designed to be behind a piano.
I was reading a book called Fresh Wind, Fresh Fire by Jim Cymbala, and it's my favorite book probably. And I remember putting it down going, God, I don't even have to do music. I'll do whatever you want me to do. Do you want me to preach? And so I went on this thing thinking, you know, I felt like God did confirm, I want you to be an evangelist. And so I thought, okay, so I'm going to preach. And then I preached a sermon in the Philippines because my pastor asked me to, and there was no music or anything. And I felt like it was a total flop. It just didn't feel like where I was supposed to be. And then he said, will you do it again the next day? And I said, yeah, but can I do it from my keyboard? So I put a keyboard up there, and I decided the theme of what I did was there's a song for every season. And so I went through the seasons of our life, the pain, the joy, whatever it is that we go through. And I showed the folks there that that God gives us a song to express all of those seasons. And then someone came up afterwards and said they gave their life to God. And I thought, okay, God, you just showed me you're an evangelist through your music. So my pulpit is my piano, and I write songs, and God uses it, and I really feel like He's confirmed that's exactly what it should be.
Yeah. And what song is in your heart right now that you feel called to write? Maybe you haven't written it yet, but you've been thinking about it. Or is that the way it works? I mean, or do you just wake up at 5 a.m. going, I have this in my heart. I'm going to write it right now in the next hour. I mean,
Yeah, sometimes that happens that way. I do find that usually there will be a phrase that just stands out. Like I was walking out my back door once and it smelled like it just rained or rain was on the way. And, I can smell that in the air. And I said, I smell rain. And I'm like, that's a really cool idea for a song. But I didn't quite know what that was supposed to say. And so it took me 2 years to understand what that song was actually going to say. So I finished a song called I Smell Rain. But the song that would be on my heart now was, again, expressing just vulnerability and honesty on my part about how my journey is still broken, how I've not got it all together, but I still rely heavily upon God's grace and forgiveness in my life, and I want to be honest about that. So this song is about that I'm on the journey, and just being on the journey is evidence that I'm still in His hand. And we fall down on the journey, but we're still on the journey. And so it's supposed to be a life-giving song that, man, if you're on the path, if you're walking it out, no matter how ugly it might look or how dark it may seem, you're in His hand, and don't grow weary in doing good. In due season, you're going to see how God's going to make this all turn around.
Now, you're an independent artist. How do you think now? Do you think about getting a record deal, or is that like something that you did 10 years ago?
No, I can't lie. I think about it all the time. I'd love to have a record deal, a writing deal. I'd love to be as successful as I can as an artist. And it's taken me a long time to actually just say that. But it is truly what I want to do.
Have you had that opportunity?
No, and that's really why I started propping my phone up.
How in the world do you have 50 million views for a song that people are and nobody calls?
No.
Not one?
No.
Not one call?
Not one. Unless I missed it. Yeah.
Pretty amazing. You know what? 3 or 4 years from now, when you're like, will you remember that you were here?
Oh,
when we try
goodness.
to
I won't forget it. Yeah. I won't forget it.
Let me ask you this very specific question. Mm-hmm. How do you get past the fear to not only hit the record button, but to hit the upload button to YouTube or to Facebook? I'm sure that there's that part of you that goes, is it good enough? What are people going to think?
He's his worst critic, for sure.
So how do you push past that?
Man, goodness.
Wouldn't it be other people?
I would say that's probably true. Seeing how the music does affect other people, and so when I go to a concert or growing up, it seems like the fruit of what I do has brought healing and encouragement to people who are really going through some difficult things. Yeah, the more I see the fruit from that, the more courage, and actually it just became less about me. And so putting a video up on Facebook started to look less like I was promoting myself and more like I was just trying to encourage people with the gifts God gave me. Yeah, so it was more obedience. It was like God saying to me, give me something to bless. I put these gifts in you. You didn't wake up and say, I'll have that gift. This is something I put in you, so I want you to use it. It's about obedience and experiencing my joy through it. And so those things have changed, and I'm glad they have.
That's wonderful. Mm-hmm. Well, I want to thank you for sharing your story. How can we help you? Those of us listening right now, first of all, how do we find your music? Mm-hmm. And how can we encourage you?
I'd say if you know people that are going through things and you feel like my music is an encouragement, share it with them. So social media is a great way to help. I mean, share the music, share it with your friends. And also you can get the music. I have a YouTube channel, which is not nearly as successful as the Facebook page, but I have a Facebook page, Craig Aven Music.
And that's A-V-E-N. Craig with a C, right? Aven.
CRAIGAVEN Music. Craig Aven Music on Facebook. And I update that with new videos, new songs, straight from my iPhone. And I have a YouTube channel as well. And then CraigAvenMusic.com is where you can get like free lead sheets or charts. You can read more about the stories behind my songs. It's more of a hub for everything I do is the online page.
Fantastic. I want to thank both of you for being here. It's been a lot of fun and insightful.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're honored to be here. Thank you for having us.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Craig, for stopping by the homestead and sharing your stories and your testimony here at the table. We so appreciate you. And I want to encourage all of you to check out Craig Aven's, that's AVEN, his videos on YouTube. You will actually see him perform these amazing songs. One is called The Perfect Way to Start, and of course, the other, The Sweetest Gift. Please do consider sharing those songs to someone you love that may be going through a difficult time this holiday season. This will be really something that will help get them through the anguish that they may be going through and the loss of a loved one. I'm David Sams, and you've been listening to Contagious Influencers of America from the producers of Keep the Faith. You can follow us on Facebook and on Instagram, or go to KeepTheFaith.com. If you enjoyed the podcast, please go to Apple Podcasts and subscribe, rate, and review Contagious Influencers of America. Join us next week, and of course, thanks for listening. And remember, go out there and live that life in living color, because it sure is a heck of a lot more interesting than living it in black and white. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.